गंगे च यमुने चैव गोदावरी सरस्वती कावेरी नर्मदे सिंधु जलस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। जल ईश्वर स्वरूप है, सौम्य, शालीन, जीवनदायक। प्रकृति का दिया ये जल रूपी वरदान पृथ्वीवासियों के लिए सिर्फ एक विरासत नहीं, बल्कि एक जिम्मेदारी है, जिसे आने वाली पीढ़ी के लिए संभालना आवश्यक है। और इस उद्देश्य की ओर पूरी निष्ठा से कार्य कर रहा है राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन, जल शक्ति मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार।
आने वाले वर्षों में बढ़ती हुई जनसंख्या के स्वच्छ पेयजल उपलब्ध कराना बहुत बड़ी चुनौती है। पानी का मुद्दा बहुआयामी और जटिल है, जिसके समाधान के लिए सबके प्रयास की जरूरत है।
जलवायु परिवर्तन का विशेष ध्यान रखते हुए नेशनल एक्शन प्लान ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज के तहत नेशनल वाटर मिशन की स्थापना की गई। राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन के प्रमुख उद्देश्य हैं जल का डेटाबेस सार्वजनिक रूप से प्रस्तुत रखना और जल संसाधनों पर जलवायु परिवर्तन के प्रभाव का आकलन करना, जल संरक्षण वृद्धि और संरक्षण के लिए नागरिक और राज्य कार्रवाई को बढ़ावा देना, शोषित क्षेत्रों सहित संवेदनशील क्षेत्रों पर ध्यान देना, 20% तक जल उपयोग कुशलता में वृद्धि करना और बेसिन स्तर के एकीकृत जल संसाधन प्रबंधन को बढ़ावा देना। 2019 में जल शक्ति अभियान की शुरुआत हुई और 2021 में जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन नामक एक खास कैंपेन शुरू किया गया। जल शक्ति अभियान के अंतर्गत लाखों की तादाद में रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर्स बनाए गए, अनेक जल निकायों का पुनर्विकास किया गया, विभिन्न जिलों में जल शक्ति केंद्र स्थापित किए गए, हजारों ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स और किसान मेले लगाए गए, वाटर बॉडीज की जियो टैगिंग और जीएस मैपिंग की गई और जिला स्तर पर साइंटिफिक डिस्ट्रिक्ट वाटर प्लान भी अपनाए गए।
जब किसी अभियान से जनता जुड़ी रहती है तो उसे कार्य की गंभीरता का पता चलता है, उसके सामर्थ्य का पता चलता है, उसके स्केल का पता चलता है, संसाधन कितने लगते हैं उसका पता चलता है। इससे जनता में एक सेंस ऑफ ओनरशिप आती है और जो सेंस ऑफ ओनरशिप जो है ना, वो सफलता की सबसे बड़ी कुंजी होती है।
राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन का मोटो है रेस्पेक्ट वाटर फॉर लाइफ, जिसकी ओर बढ़ते हुए जल प्रयोग क्षमता बढ़ाने के लिए जल शक्ति मंत्रालय द्वारा पूर्णतः समर्पित प्रभाग भी शुरू किया गया है। ब्यूरो ऑफ वाटर यूज एफिशिएंसी जल इतिहास नामक पोर्टल पर ट्रेडिशनल वाटर हेरिटेज स्ट्रक्चर्स की जानकारी सार्वजनिक रूप से प्रस्तुत की गई एवं जन भागीदारी को भी अत्यधिक प्रोत्साहित किया गया है।
कृषि के उपयोग के लिए, पीने के पानी के लिए उपयोग के लिए, उद्योग धंधों के उपयोग के लिए पानी की उपलब्धता निर्बाध रूप से बनी रहे और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में जो हम विकसित भारत बनाने का लक्ष्य लेकर चले हैं, उसकी आपूर्ति में जल की उपलब्धता बाधा न बने, स्पीड ब्रेकर न बने, इसके लिए वाटर सेक्टर के कंप्लीट रिजुविनेशन के लिए माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में जल शक्ति मंत्रालय काम कर रहा है।
मंत्रालय के इतिहास में पहली बार राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन द्वारा भोपाल में प्रथम अखिल भारतीय राज्य मंत्रियों का सम्मेलन आयोजित किया गया और स्वयं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री महोदय ने इस द्विदिवसीय सम्मेलन को संबोधित कर इसका उद्घाटन किया।
For a campaign to be really successful, it has to have the commitment of the top political leadership. And what better commitment can be there if the Prime Minister of the country gives this clarion call to the citizens to participate in this program.
जल उपलब्धता सुनिश्चित करने हेतु जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन 2023 का मुख्य प्रसंग है पीने के पानी के सतत स्रोत, जिसका उद्घाटन भारत की राष्ट्रपति महामहिम श्रीमती द्रौपदी मुर्मू द्वारा किया गया। प्रमोशन अवसर पर जल शक्ति से नारी शक्ति इस सिद्धांत को प्रबल किया गया। आइए हम भी जल शक्ति अभियान से जुड़ें और जल आंदोलन को जन आंदोलन बनाकर जल संकल्प को दृढ़ करें, क्योंकि संरक्षित हो जल तभी बेहतर कल।
A very good afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to 46th Water Talk, being organized by National Water Mission and is supported by Water Digest. While you saw so many initiatives of National Water Missions, today we will be talking about the right to water. The right to water and sanitation is a fundamental human right enshrined in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Talking about Delhi specifically, the issue of water and sanitation for urban poor is particularly pressing as lakhs of people do not have access to clean water and adequate sanitation facilities. While there are reports in survey which talk about 93% of the Delhi's population having access to piped water supply, but quality and availability of water are not uniform across the city. Why are we talking about right to water? What it is, how important it is, are we all aware of it? When we talk about the challenges in the sector, especially in domestic water management, we talk about lack of infrastructure and resources. We talk about lack of will to address such challenges and a very important part, lack of awareness and education on these aspects. And I think that's where the Water Talk series focuses a lot on, spreading awareness on various aspects of water. And today's topic, very well chosen again, right to water and sanitation for urban poor, a Delhi case study, which is being delivered by Dr. Maheshwar Singh, who is a professor of political science, National Law University. Dr. Singh, welcome, sir. Dr. Singh is also um, He's also the director of Center for Studies in Disability and Law at the National Law University, New Delhi, and also a visiting professor at number of university. He has been teaching in the political science and international relations for more than 2 decades and also holds a doctoral degree in diplomacy and international security from JNU. Sir has been extensively working in this sector. He has researched and published many papers in the same areas, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you in today's talk. But before I hand it over to our speaker, we are honored to have with us Ms. Archana Verma, who is the Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, and under her chairmanship, these Water Talk series are being done and being organized. So over to you, ma'am. We request you for your opening remark and to set the tone for today's Water Talk. Over to you, Archana, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Anupma. And there's something which Anupma didn't tell or didn't disclose in this Water Talk is that apart from all the distinctions that Maheshwar has, he's also a very close friend of mine, and we're both from JNU. So yes, there you can say there's been a certain degree of nepotism in choosing the speaker. But jokes apart, he is actually a person who has really proven that disability cannot be your vulnerability, and your vulnerability can be a source of strength to you. So he has made his vulnerability source of strength, and
Archana, ma'am, your video is paused. Archana, ma'am, your video is paused. While the internet has certainly, this virtual platform has certainly helped us connecting from various places, from far places as well, and we are able to have participation from various parts of the country today, thanks to the virtual platform. However, there are still certain limitations to the overall, such facilities and technologies. Unfortunately, there is some connectivity issue from ma'am's side. We couldn't hear much from her side, and we are trying our best that ma'am will rejoin from her side. And by the time Archana ma'am joins, I request Mr. Singh, Dr. Singh, to kindly, propose and talk about your work and maybe, take this forward. And sooner we have Archana ma'am with us once again, then we'll take it forward. Over to you, Dr. Singh.
Uh, Thank you very much, Ms. Madhok, for your kind words. And of course, Archana has always been, well, she's here. Let us speak first.
Should I be speaking?
Yeah, of
Yes,
course.
ma'am.
Okay, so basically, generally, when we hold these water talks, we generally have people who are, practitioners who've done a lot of work in water conservation. But I always feel that, in India, what is missing is a close convergence with academia. So that is why we are very fortunate to have you today, because I feel that unless, academia, bureaucrats, organizations, they all combine, we we miss out on some things. So, with regard to Delhi, since he's the first person I think who'll be speaking from the rights perspective. I've already explained the background why we call him Munmun is always, the rights-based person. So actually, it's an irony that water should be called a fundamental right.
अभी अभी शरण को नहीं ले जा सकते अभी ये चल रही है ना इसमें बिल्कुल अभी नहीं
Sir, I request you to kindly unmute yourself.
Itself.
Apologies, ma'am. Please.
Water by itself, it's a precious gift of nature. It doesn't recognize boundaries. It doesn't recognize rich, poor. And to say that it should be a right is a kind of an anomaly, because it is there for everybody. It just doesn't differentiate. The problem is that we, as humans who are highly political by nature, we give definitions to water, like my water, your water, the rich people's water, poor people's water. Water only knows how to flow. But yes, in civilizations, it becomes a highly political and contentious issues. And that is why, despite the fact that we have made so many efforts to, get water, especially in urban areas, going, and water and sanitation, especially for the urban poor, there are many, many challenges. If I come to Delhi, I can say that Delhi constitutes the national capital region, constitutes a very small part of the Yamuna basin. It doesn't have water on its own. Basically, it is dependent on other sources, coupled with the fact that it is the capital of India and is a home immigrants settle, go in for settlements which are often not recognized by the government. So to provide government, benefits to people who are not recognized becomes another challenge. Then there is this issue in urban areas of multiplicity of agencies. You have the urban slum board, and you have the water utility, Delhi Jal Board. Often there is no one authority, or there is no one structure which makes them talk to each other. We generally, in municipal corporations and in urban areas, we work in silos. So that becomes a big, big challenge, because, one authority may be recognizing water and sanitation as a right, the other would be saying that, okay, give me your Aadhaar card, give me your, any identity which proves that you are a settled person who is recognized to, um, so that we give water or sanitation facilities to you. And plus, urban housing is, especially for the lower income groups, remains an issue. Though there are many efforts which are being done, another major factor which remains as a big challenge is that people want to live in a certain area. So, because of business and economic opportunities, so the expansion and slumming is generally seen in areas which are, developed, very developed, like we see Dharavi right in the middle of Mumbai. So, so there are huge challenges, and I'm happy to report that, the Amrut mission under the Ministry of Urban Welfare, the sanitation Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, they are all working towards finding solutions along with some municipalities who have done wonderful work. And we recently had a joint meeting with the Secretary, Ministry of Urban Affairs, and many of the municipal commissioners, despite all the constraints, showcased a lot of initiatives by which, despite the area constraint and the space constraint, they've done some wonderful work in rainwater harvesting structures, because rain is something which we can, which in the urban areas can really be harvested, because their technology is now so that water reaches households. Since, getting it from rivers and canals is not only expensive, it becomes a huge maintenance issue. Being in a government colony, we recently got our water quality checked, and we found that, it was full of, forget the name of the chemical, but which leads to blue baby syndrome. So, so it's not that it's only the urban poor who is affected. Civic amenities in urban areas are a huge challenge, and it is not just the government which is to blame. It is also, all of us who don't observe civic behavior also. So I guess, yes, I agree that water should be a right, sanitation should be a right. In fact, should be a right should not be talked about. It is a right, but there are huge challenges, and that's where the academic and the practitioner perspective differs. Like Maheshwar would talk about challenges, about, that it should be done. Well, I'll also see it from the perspective of, okay, ideally good, but can it be done? So I will stop here, and I will request Maheshwar, over to you to talk about rights and to, be full on critical of government. Welcome.
Thank you, Archana, for your downright and very comprehensive perspective on the question of water, and your right to say that your water, my water, their water, his water, her water, water is for everyone. I wonder if the world was so just that I want water, I would not claim it to be my water and deny it to others. Unfortunately, or fortunately, unfortunately, I would say, the world is a contentious place, and we fight over little small things, and that's gives rise to rights perspective. But at the same time, I'm also very thankful to Ms. Madhuk for all her support and all her efforts in making this conversation possible. Let me just speak about the right to water and sanitation for urban poor in Delhi. This work is a joint collaborative effort of National Law University Delhi and Law and Development Group at the University of Antwerp in Belgium. From National Law University Delhi, some of us, and from Belgium, some of the professors got together, conceived this idea, carried out the field work, did the desk work, also did the analysis on NVivo is a software which really takes care of qualitative responses. We solicited responses from all the 4 slum sites from the people, and then we finally came up with our analysis, and then with this report. So that's what it is. It's a product of a joint effort, intercontinental effort, so to speak. Why did we choose to work on right to water and sanitation? All right. We chose to work on the question of, wait a minute, let me just, okay.
Anupma, you have a presentation of Maheshwar?
Yeah, it's here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Maheshwar's voice is gone. Anupma,
Sir, shall we share the presentation from our side and you can close it?
better.
Yes.
You can do that. And you can go on saying next.
Okay. Maheshwar sir, I request you to kindly close your presentation. We will open it from our side. Yes, can we open sir's presentation?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Please.
very well. Okay, right. So the context of the study is the massive influx that that the city of Delhi and Bombay and other metropolitan cities of earlier presidency cities have been witnessing since the late 90s. People in search of jobs and so on are coming to these mega cities, and they do not have, most of them, that are not able to find a place to live. So there is a proliferation of squatting and urban settlement, which we call slums, though they are of many variety. And once one goes to slum, then one realizes that the basic amenities, civic amenities, which are essential for the dignified existence of human life, is missing from some of these slums. For example, in one of the slums in Begumpur, which is in the heart of the city, in the South Delhi, there is only one sort of common toilet. People have toilets in their small little houses, and there is no regular water supply. And likewise in other slums. So then we decided to sort of explore on the question of water and sanitation. Now, water and sanitation are usually in international legal documents and international conventions have been treated as two sides of the same coin, or simultaneously. There is no strict wall of separation between water and sanitation issues, because there is an interconnection between what you call the clean water and proper sanitation facility. All right. So that's why there is water and sanitation issues are dealt in international law, also in domestic laws. and also some of the programs that government have initiated as a joint, as not a separate issue, but rather as joint issues. So that's why we decided to work on water and sanitation issue from the rights perspective. Now, there has been recent effort to separate sanitation issues from the water rights and so on and so forth. But what we feel that water cannot be divorced separately, water rights cannot be divorced separately or completely from sanitation rights, and sanitation rights cannot be seen in isolation to water rights. So this is the context in which we decided to work on water and sanitation issues for urban poor in an urban metropolis like Delhi. Now, this research we have carried out at 4 levels. One is at the global level. Second is at the domestic level. Third is the water and sanitation policies of the government. And fourth is the socio-legal research in the slums of Delhi. All right. So first 3 levels are basically sort of doctrinal research or desk work. The fourth part, which is the socio-legal research in the slum areas of Delhi, is the real work, data collection work, solicitation of responses from the people related to water and sanitation rights in slum areas and so on. So fourth part is the part where we extensively researched on the question of water and sanitation in the slums of Delhi. Now, when we say global level, what do we mean by global level? All right. The global level is largely deals with the work of before that. So what has been our research aim? The research aim is to carry out the human rights analysis of right to water and sanitation. So if this were to be the research aim, then what has been our research questions? The main research question is what, if any, is the relevance of human rights for urban poor in New Delhi in relation to right to water and sanitation? All right. And the sub-question within the main questions are, does the slum community use the language of rights to demand water and sanitation facility from the duty holder? Who is the duty holder here? The civic bodies, the local government, and other layers of government are the duty holders. Second is the local understanding and content of right to water is different from global one? If yes, why it is so? Number 3 is, given the introduction of PPP mode of privatization of water distribution in Delhi, how the existing water and sanitation arrangement of the urban poor slum dwellers are negotiated or renegotiated. Fourth is, how does the inadequate provision of essential services, water and sanitation to be precise, facilities and other facilities affect women? So gender is one of the important component, all right, or important facet of our study. So the methodological framework is chosen as the localizing human rights framework. What is localizing, which is developed by some of the international lawyers at the University of Antwerp and other international lawyers in Europe. All right. It is basically saying that the primary authors of human rights are right, or rights of any kind, right to water, right to sanitation, right to education, right to electricity, right to housing, are the local people, people who are most affected. That is the starting point. So they must realize that their rights are not being adequately sort of they're not adequately able to exercise their rights, and they formulate their grievances in the language of rights. So that is what is localizing it. Localizing implies. So our perspective is basically we have adopted localizing human rights approach to understand the water and sanitation issues of urban poor in Delhi. Now, localizing has various tracks, almost about 5 tracks, all right? But for the purposes of our work, a local claim qualifies as human rights claim when it satisfies 3 criteria. Number one, the claim uses human rights language, although there can be a fusion of local concepts of justice, for example, in case of water and sanitation rights being used by the slum dwellers in Delhi. For example, in question of in the context of water and sanitation rights, the rights are formulated in in or given a local content, and when we went to the field and we interacted with the slum dwellers, they formulated this whole question of water and sanitation rights in form of hak. It is our hak. It is our right to get water and regular water supply and sanitation facilities. Second is it identifies a duty holder. All right. So not merely they're saying that it is our right to have adequate water and proper sanitation facility, but who is the provider? Who should provide that water and sanitation facility? And the provider is identified as a duty holder. In this case, the various layers of government are the duty holder. And lastly, it insists on accountability from duty holder. That one is the acknowledgement of right. Two is the recognition of a duty holder for violation of the rights, and third is the demand of accountability from the duty holder. Now, the few slides back, I mentioned that this study has been carried at 4 levels. First is the global level. So we will begin with the global level. Then we will come at the constitutional level, then at the municipal level, at the local level, and lastly, we will take up the socio-economic research, socio-legal research conducted in the slums in Delhi. All right. So first is the global level. Global level, does it mean that we went around the globe with a questionnaire and solicited response from people, activists, officials working on water and sanitation issue? No. We merely looked at the international law documents, all right, and try and figure out through those documents as to what the international law speak about or has within itself about the right to water and sanitation. Now, right to water and sanitation bears very little formal recognition within the legally binding norms of international law. However, having said this, 4 points are important. Or the second point of the fourth point is second, third, and fourth point is more important. That right to water and sanitation is derived from Article 11.1 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights as a fundamental guarantee for securing an adequate standard of living. So here, one sees the fusion of two sets of rights. One is adequate standard of living, and two, adequate standard of living is foursquared on the issue of water and sanitation rights. All right. The committee also underlined the link between right to water and sanitation and basic right to health laid down in Article 12 of International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. All right. So committee is the most authoritative interpreter of International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and Article 12 lays down the right to health. So once again, you see, a network is created between rights. That right to adequate standard of living is linked to right to water and sanitation, and right to health is also linked to adequate standard of living, and subsequently it's linked to right to water and sanitation. The most important and recent one is 2010 General Assembly and Human Rights Council resolution expressly declaring the right to water as an international human rights. So even if that right to water and sanitation has not found formal legal recognition as a legally binding norm in international law, but it forms part of jus cogens, which is a very important principle of international law. And jus cogens are those principles which are kind of, truths, all right, for which no evidence is required. All right, so it is commonsensical understanding that right to health is dependent on right to water and sanitation, and right to water and sanitation is dependent on right to adequate standard of living. Now, what is the content of right to water and sanitation in international law? Now, international law, as you know, functions on the principles of equality and non-discrimination. Insofar as the access to water and sanitation facility is concerned, it should not be dependent on other variables like right to housing, right to, for example, informal settlements, and so on, and squatting on public land. It should be made available to everyone, and water and sanitation rights are such that it should be made available to everyone, irrespective of their the legal status of their holding or legal status of their housing rights. All right. So the CECS further specifies that no household should be denied the right to water on grounds of housing and land status. And the view is further pronounced and emphasized by the special rapporteur on water and sanitation right, and he said it very clearly that the legal tenure or the housing right, all right, is missing in most of the informal settlement, and that should not become a reason to deny right to water and sanitation to people who are migrating to big cities like Delhi. Uh, so that's the other important point is how much of what is the adequate quantity, what is the quantity of water which is sanctioned in international law as the minimum quantity of water required for dignified human existence, and then it increases from minimum to maximum quantity of water. So in international law, it's 20 liters per capita per day is the minimum essential amount of water. All right. Minimum essential amount of water uh, uh, is the core content of right to water. Then for a healthy standard of living, it goes up to 50 liters per capita per day. And for uh, for optimal utilization of optimal realization of right to water, 100 liters of water per capita per day is the optimal access that one can enjoy. All right. Now, in international law, it's also about quality and supply of quality drinking water, in which the standard WHO guidelines are recommended in various of the documents of international law with regard to drinking water. And with regard to sanitation facility, it is the international law documents clearly suggest that many of the uh, uh, many of these sanitation facilities should be adequate and 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 proper. All right. Uh, Now, other important aspect in international law with regard to water and sanitation right is the question of accessibility. And accessibility is very important. Accessibility is defined in four axes. Number one is the physical accessibility supplies sufficient, safe, and acceptable water, which should be available within the physical reach of everyone that is in the immediate vicinity of each household, educational institution, and
So
workplace.
may I please request you to full screen this presentation?
Is it not full screen?
No, sir.
Uh, is it full screen now?
No, sir.
Uh,
Do you want us to run it from our side?
yeah, please, if you can, the last one. Accessibility question.
You need to.
Yeah. Accessibility question.
That's it. That's it. Previous to this one.
Just
Previous to this.
accessibility. The second important is accessibility question is linked to the contents of water quality, but also to the threats of physical security of water bearers, and mostly in this case, the women and girls, at least in two of the four slum areas. we asked questions related to the physical security of water bearers. What happens to them, all right, when they go out to collect water? And 2 out of the 4 slum areas have stand post, which is far away from their home. And there's limited supply of water only for few hours in the morning and few hours in the evening. And many a times, all right, very sheepishly so, and in very sort of roundabout way, many of the respondents, at least our respondent set included 20 men and 20 women. So women respondents did say that they suffered, threats of violence or actual violence, all right, when they went to collect water at these stand posts. So accessibility question becomes very important. The third important question with regard to third important aspect with regard to economic is accessibility, is economic accessibility, that people should bear the cost of supply of water, all right, adequate supply of water, at least 20 liters per day, which is basic minimum per capita, all right, they should be able to buy. Now, in one of the slums in Begumpur, we got this response from across the slums, across the 4 slums, all right, that people argued that they were willing to bear the cost, as they're bearing the cost of electricity, provided they are able to access clean drinking water in adequate quantity, all right, and they're willing to bear the cost. So in a way, we have a sort of fixed view about privatization, that privatization is bad and it imposes cost on people and so on and so forth. But actually, when we solicited the response of people, they are willing to pay for services, but their only condition is that it should be reasonably priced, and it should be made available to everyone in equal measure. And last point with regard to accessibility is the requirement. This requirement equally applies to sanitation facilities. So we are talking about water and sanitation rights and togetherness. All right. Now, the next one. So this is at the national level. As I said, the study is carried out at 4 levels. So first part was global level, that is at the national level. What is the position in Constitution insofar as right to water and sanitation is concerned? Now, please remember that Constitution does not guarantee, like other fundamental rights, a right to water and sanitation. But the Supreme Court has developed, and several of the tribunals, especially the national green tribunals, have developed a jurisprudence around, giving the broad interpretation of Article 21, which is right to life. And they have included the right to clean water, right to environment, right to clean air, and so on and so forth, right to health. So that jurisprudence has been expanding, giving the interpretation of Article 21. So in indirect way, right to water and sanitation has acquired, I would say, the status of a right that can be claimed if it is violated violated by the legislative act or by the executive act. All right, and then we have a whole lot of case laws. All right, and I referred to some case laws, which are the landmark cases, landmark judgments given by the Supreme Court of India, which is Subhas Kumar versus the state of Bihar, Wasim Ahmad Khan versus the government of AP, then then there are other cases, and the recent one was Pani Haq Samiti and others versus Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation and others. So the point that I'm trying to put across for your consideration is there has been a sort of positive interpretation of or expansive interpretation of right to life, or Article 21 of the Constitution of India, in such a way that right to water and sanitation have acquired the heft that is required to be asserted in the court of law. Now, at the national level, there are a whole lot of programs which are also essential, or which have also acknowledged the significance of water and sanitation rights for urban poor in Delhi. And these important acts and bills include the National Water Framework Bills. Which says that right to water should be integral with the right to life. Then fundamental right to sanitation, fundamental right to adequate housing. Now, there's a lot of debate within the domestic setting as well as international law, where municipal authorities have declined, at least in domestic settings, the right to adequate water and sanitation, or right to water and sanitation to people living in JJ colonies, or Jhuggi Jhopadi colonies. Now, in government records, all right, the slums do not exist, all right, or this Jhuggi Jhopadi do not exist. So the local government does not have any obligation, does not act as a duty bearer, duty holder, or is not obliged to extend water and sanitation facilities to the people who live in the slums, all right, or Jhuggi Jhopadi colony. So the last case that I spoke about, which is Brihan Pani Haq Samiti and others versus Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation and others, the Bombay High Court very clearly established that regardless of the legal status of the people living in slum areas, all right, or Jhuggi Jhopadi areas, it is incumbent upon, all right, it's obligatory upon the Municipal Corporation of Bombay or Brihan Municipal Corporation to supply potable drinking water to and other civic facilities to people living in Jhuggi Jhopadi areas. So that has been settled, but still governments deny the sanitation and water right to people who do not have the housing rights, or do not have the legal papers to prove that they are not squatting on government land, but they are the legal holders of the houses in which they live. All right, and there are a whole lot of central legislation that that I've mentioned: the Prevention and Protection Against Water Pollution Act, the establishment of norms of water supply and sanitation, then a whole lot of poverty alleviation program, which includes National Urban Sanitation Policy, which is also Swachh Bharat Mission, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, then prohibition of manual scavenging and so on. All right. So these sort of efforts have been made at the central level, both on the judicial side as well as legislative side, to acknowledge the significance of water and sanitation as important rights for the dignified existence of people living in for the urban poor, so to speak, in megapolises like Delhi or other metropolises. Now, the problem in Delhi is we come to the municipal part of it. The third part of our research is the municipal legislation is in Delhi. It has definitely a very complex administrative structure, right? Now, the city, part of the city is being run by the central government. Part of the city is run by the Delhi government. Part of the city is run by the Cantonment Board Acts. And there is, as Archana was saying, there are multiplicity of agencies, all right, addressing the same question of water and sanitation, for our case, water and sanitation. And many a times, I mean, multiplicity of agencies are not a problem, all right? The problem is that these multiplicity of agencies, sometimes because of political reasons, are at loggerheads with each other. So one agency is committed to uphold the water and sanitation facilities or water and sanitation rights for urban poor. Other agency becomes an obstruction. So that becomes a problem. Then National Human Rights Commission on Water and Sanitation Rights have also played a very important role. I've included the function of National Human Rights Commission because I've approached the question of water and sanitation from rights perspective. And so that's why their interventions, all right, to acknowledge to uphold the water and sanitation rights becomes very important. And on several occasions, the National Human Rights Commission have taken the suo motu notice and directed the concerned agencies to provide adequate amount of water and proper sanitation facilities if those rights appear to be violated or being violated. All right. So the last part of our research, which also kind of feeds into the first part of our research, which is at the global level, and feeds it is mediated through the national level, and the global level feeds into the social legal research that we have conducted in 4 slums in Delhi. All right. These slums are Savda Ghebra, which is a planned resettlement colony in West Delhi built on 257 acres. Then we have Rangpur Pahadi, which was in news for slum demolition sometime back. It's a Jhuggi Jhopri cluster built on 2.33 acres of land of DDA and forest land. The third is Bhavar Singh Camp in Vasant Vihar. It's again a Jhuggi Jhopri cluster built on 0.87 acres of land. This is also called the Nepali colony. And fourth is Beganpur. It's a JJ cluster, Jhuggi Jhopri cluster built on 0.6 acres of land in Delhi. All right. Now, in all these, the choice of the slums were made keeping in mind the several factors. For example, the feasibility of field work, the inner city slums, and for comparative purposes, the resettlement colony like Savda Ghebra and so on and so forth. All right, let's not get into that. So we looked at the existing water and sanitation facility in all the 4 slums. All right. And what is the arrangement? We studied it in detail, and except for Savda Ghebra and partially Beganpur, most of the water and sanitation arrangement was a local arrangement, which is organized and run by local people under the patronage of elected representatives of the area, all right, corporator or whoever person in charge. Then we also asked a question that, and across the board in all the poor slums, people generally, our respondents agreed that they are facing acute crisis with regard to related to water and sanitation facility. They are not getting adequate amount of water or proper sanitation facilities. All right. So then we asked the question: what is it that they have done? Have they given a petition? Have they collectively given a petition to the government agencies, or have they approached the local municipal body in order so that their rights are protected and so on and so forth? Most of the people, please remember, in the slum areas are poor people, and women in the slum areas are mostly work as housemaids, or at least our respondents working as housemaids in nearby colonies. So early morning they go, and late in the afternoon they come back. All right, they barely find time, sort of to gather together and sort of give an application or think of a collective action in order to assert their right to water and sanitation. One is this practical aspect. The second is because their land tenure is not secure, right? So they fear that if they assert too much, if they assert their right to water and sanitation, which is very well acknowledged in international law, that is not linked to right to housing or secure land tenure, all right? They fear that they will be evicted from their respective places, all right? So this creates a human rights issue. And the general finding that we had in all the slum areas, that our respondents were able to formulate their right to water and sanitation in rights language, but they used the expression haq. They also acknowledged that it is the responsibility of the duty bearer to address those rights concerned. They have certain expectations from the government. On the question of privatization, they are absolutely, there is a clear response that they are willing to pay the cost for proper water and sanitation, but it should be reasonable and it should not be prohibitive. And in the sense that if water and sanitation rights are not cost prohibitive, all right, despite privatization, it will not affect their health, adversely affect their health and other kinds of rights. So, three human rights challenges from rights perspective we have come to realize, come to understand through our study. One is, in the community, there is a perception of a problem, community of slum dwellers. Sometimes the actions are taken and the responses are received, but that's too minimal a response to be called as to be described as a human rights response or rights response to rights violation. And number three is, there are essential barriers to effective participation in collective action to restore the human rights to water and sanitation for urban poor in Delhi. So these are the broad findings that I've shared with you. I would be very happy to elaborate upon some of the aspects of my presentation in course of Q&A, which I have skipped through deliberately, so just to keep the time keep track of the time. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for your wonderful presentation and for telling us so much about right to water and sanitation and talking and discussing the case of Delhi, especially the clusters where you have researched and extensively talked and interacted with the people living there. So now, like you rightly said, we will be opening for Q&A. So with permission of Archana ma'am, shall we open the question answer session, ma'am? So most of our participants are well versed with the format, but still I'll quickly repeat that towards the right side, you have an option of raising your hand. So maybe you can raise hand and my team will unmute you. You can put forward your query. Also, you can write your query in the chat box and can address it to us as well, and we'll be happy taking it forward. So we are officially opening the question answer session now. And I've already received one question from Rabi Duti Biswas. Ms. Biswas, would you like to ask directly? We can unmute you and you can ask your question. So she has separately sent it in the chat box, and she said it is an excellent explanation on right to water and sanitation. Please let me know your viewpoint on 20 KL free water. So I think, sir, I would like to say here it should be 20 liters free water, right? Which you showed
20
in your,
liters.
yes.
Ah.
So Biswasri, it is 20 liters free water. And yes, please let me know your viewpoint on 20-liter free water. Is it towards ensuring the right to water?
Well, 20 liters of free water per capita per person in a household. So a household if the household comprises of 5 people, that means 100 liters of water. All right. Per capita. All right. Per capita means per individual, and I think that will, if it is made available for free, all right, that will go a long way to ensure the right to water, at least for urban poor in Delhi. All right. But I wonder if 20 liters per capita per
Sir.
Allow me to finish this.
Okay.
Will be ensured by the local government. Yes, please.
So first of all, my apologies, not Miss Vishwas, Mr. Vishwas, as I could only see your name. So Mr. Vishwas, you can directly speak to our speaker, and yes, if you have to say anything, you may please put forward.
Thank you so much. My question was not for 20 liter, it is 20 KL water, free water given by Delhi government, whether it is ensuring the right to water or sanitation, or it's just a type of a benefit that is given to the people.
Well, there is, I have to say this, there is a difference between what is being announced, what is being reported in the newspaper, and what exists on the ground. As I said, our study sites included at least 2 slum areas which do not exist, at least one of the 2 areas do not exist in government books. So government is not obliged to extend water and sanitation facilities to these areas. All right. And water at least, and sanitation facilities, people go out for open defecation in the jungles because this is located on jungle land or the forest land. All right. So they have to depend on their own local mechanism that they have developed over the years for water rights. And also it is patronized by the local councillor, local corporator or local elected representative. All right. So announcement is one thing, but making it available to people is entirely another. I mean, Delhi has about 14,000 kilometers of water supply pipelines, all right? And if all slums are to be connected with piped water, then it needs to be it needs to be augmented. At least the conservative estimate suggests that at least by 5,000 kilometers more. So that requires investment, that requires commitment. Do you follow? Am I clear, sir?
Okay. Can we please unmute Mr. Murthy? Mr. Murthy, may I please request you to kindly unmute yourself? Please.
Thank you, Professor. Very interesting discussion. I'm also a water professional working across urban and rural water supply projects. So one of the issues that I come across is that the acts and laws related to slum development. They do not recognize property issues and all that. And say, I think in Mumbai, as per the BMC policy, they can only give a group connection to households in slums. That to recognize slums. Every 10 households, one group connection, etc. And I'm sure it's the same across many cities. Do you think that's an impediment in enabling right to water and sanitation in the slum areas, especially the poor who 50% of cities are slum, and can something be done about that? That's the question.
But in international law, as I said, the documents very clearly establish a linkage between right to housing and right to water and sanitation. These are conjoined rights, all right? And in international law, sort of relationship is not is severed between the right to adequate housing and right to water and sanitation. The international laws clearly says that the water and sanitation right should not be made dependent on the land holding or the legal tenureship of the householder. Regardless of the legal or illegal settlement, it is the duty holder which should provide the basic minimum water to the households and provide the sanitation facilities.
Can we please unmute Dr. Avdesh Pratap ji? Dr. Avdesh, can we request you to kindly unmute yourself?
Mr. Maheshwar,
Yes, please.
basically, there is no provision in our constitution and water legislation to the right to water. Supreme Court
right.
and Bihar High Court in Subhash Kumar, and you tell me some case law. Basically, for implementing the Supreme Court orders, there must be infrastructure first and adequate quantity of water to supply for your research area. And according to my study, the infrastructure is not developed in these areas. And second thing, adequate water is not available in Delhi to supply to these areas according to its international standard of water consumption measures. Then how will it possible to fulfill or to compliance the order of Supreme Court to supply adequate water and good quality water and sanitation facilities. Basically, sanitation facilities are not proper in many cities of India, and in entire Delhi, in good areas also, sanitation facilities are not proper. Then it is the matter of infrastructure development with implementation of and compliance of order of the Supreme Court. Then in your study, you did not mention this point.
Well, you're right to say that the Constitution of India does not establish water and sanitation as fundamental rights, but probably in course of my conversation on the subject, I said that a very expansive interpretation of Article 21, which is Part 3 of the Constitution, has been given by the Supreme Courts and various high courts, which establishes right to water and sanitation, which establishes a linkage between right to water and sanitation, right to health. And so indirectly it has become sort of right that can be asserted. For example, Subhash Kumar and other cases, Brihan Mumbai Corporation, the other cases that I mentioned, kind of establishes the legality of these rights. But the other aspect of your question, other dimension of your question is about the feasibility of the fulfillment of that rights. Do we have the necessary wherewithal in terms of adequate amount of water in Delhi to supply water to urban poor, whether we have the adequate sanitation facility. And I skipped this matter, but several of the government legislations, all right, at least since 2014, I spoke about Swachh Bharat. I did not speak about Swachh Bharat mission, but that's part of my study, has made rapid strides in providing sanitation facilities to large number of people, not merely in rural area, but urban area. But I agree with you, we still have many more strides to make to have some kind of, to meet the demands of distributive justice insofar as water and sanitation rights are concerned. I'm not sure if I have answered the question, but in my understanding of things, I have tried to answer in the way that I could answer this question.
Mr. Muralidhar is asking, what do you think about Delhi's colonies that lack access to clean water? Would that violate the citizens' right to access water for drinking? What should an individual do if that is the case in order to exercise their right?
Which colonies Mr. Muralidhar is talking about?
Mr. Muralidhar, would you like to speak and ask directly? Can we unmute Mr. Muralidhar? Please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to ask. Before I get into the question, I just wanted to congratulate about your presentation. It was nicely presented, and the kind of recommendation you have made, those are pertinent. Going back to my question, I live in Delhi for many years, been the 15 years. I live in a very legal settlement which was built by DDA in 2010. This is quite a personal question, in terms of the access of clean water, and we haven't been able to access clean water from the DDAs where I live. And my question is, would that violate the citizen right to access water when it comes to the cleanness? We do get up water, right? Water supply is good, but the water is not potable in terms of, that water is quite undrinkable. So what should I do in terms of if it is my right to access the potable water as a citizen? What should I do in order to access my right?
From the right perspective, if you're not getting adequate amount of potable water and on a regular basis at your residence, then certainly it's is the question of is the violation of rights. But what could you do about it, and whether rights are violated across the board? All right, and in order to restore uh, the violation of rights, which agencies to approach, where to go to the courts or to go to the municipal corporation or Delhi Jal Board is entirely up to you. But I recently wrote a paper which was published by Sage on water question itself, and I'm not a scientific person, but I had to sort of rely on scientific data. Delhi is a water stress zone. And as MD has suggested that we are dependent on Yamuna River basin for our water supplies. So then in a way, for regular water supply, we are dependent on the sources which are not entirely in the control of Delhi government. It involves interstate river water distribution and so on and so forth. So it is a problem, but it is part of a larger problem. But I am sure if you're not getting adequate potable water, and on a regular basis, you can approach one of the agencies of the Delhi government and, sort of file a complaint that your rights are being violated and so on. But beyond that, what can I say?
Mr. Murthy is asking, do you think that are the slum policies conducive for wash rights?
The slum policy is conducive for wash rights.
Wash rights.
Yeah. I am not very sure if the policy is conducive to wash rights or not. Because Delhi Urban Slum Board is the one which takes care of all of this. Then you have DTA, then you have other agencies, all right? And all of them sort of, as MD has suggested, sometimes talk to each other, sometimes don't talk to each other. There's no coordination among them. So even if it is a sound policy to provide water at a minimum level and sanitation facilities to urban poor in Delhi, the other agencies become or the objections raised by other agencies become a roadblock. So the idea is to create a kind of mechanism which coordinates the differences of perception insofar as water and sanitation rights of urban poor are concerned. And that coordinating agency will be able to harmonize the differences among the agencies, and probably the policies could be policies related to wash could be improved, and at least the policy consequences of wash could be improved.
How does the issue of water and sanitation access intersect with other social and economic factors that impact the lives of the urban poor in Delhi, such as poverty, housing, and healthcare?
Of course, they are interlinked. I have spoken in course of my presentation that right to health, right to adequate standard of living, right to housing, they're all interconnected rights. It creates a kind of nexus among themselves, internal structure among themselves, and violation of one causes the violation of others. So they are codependent on each other. Each of these rights, right to adequate housing, right to adequate standard of living, right to housing, right to water, right to sanitation, all of these socio-economic rights are interlinked with each other. but then we have to prioritize which one is more important in a given context over others.
Mr. Murthy, would you like to speak? Can we unmute Mr. Murthy? Can we unmute Mr. Murthy?
Yeah, no, I'm requesting Professor if he can share the presentation with the participants. If it is.
I think here I will say, Ms. Murthy, so all the water talks, whichever has happened till now, all the presentations, they find their place on the website of National Water Mission. Also, these questions, these queries, all the answers are generally placed in the FAQ section of National Water Mission's website. So you'll get all this information there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
So anybody else who would like to ask any question from Dr. Singh, please raise your hand or write in the chat box. Yes, can we unmute Mr. Singhal? Can we unmute Mr. S.K. Singhal? Mr. Singhal, I request you to kindly unmute yourself. Mr. Singhal, you need to unmute from your side. We have already done it from our side. Okay, or maybe you can write in the chat box. We still have time. We can definitely take your query. You can write in the chat box if you're not able to unmute yourself. Okay.
I guess, Anupma, not wait.
Yes,
But
ma'am. So, yes,
there
because
are
in
some
today's
other questions, then it's fine. Otherwise,
yes, ma'am. Not many questions today, and we do understand today's topic is slightly different from the way we've been, taking various topics. But good, our approach is again inclusive. Let's have various topics. Let's have variety. If there is any query, we'll be happy taking it up. If you feel that even after this water talk, there is something which you want to address or you want to talk to Dr. Singh, you can definitely write to us or you can write to National Water Mission and we'll be happy to reply to your queries. MSC is within exemption limit. Would registration and approval is still necessary? So this is the query by Mr. Singhal.
What is MSC? MSE? He has written something.
MSE. Mr. Singhal, you need to elaborate on your query again, right? Can you write it? Micro small enterprise.
I mean, I'm afraid, Mr. Singhal, I cannot answer your query with any degree of competence. I'm sorry, I don't deal with micros and small enterprises.
Okay, so I think with this we come to the end of the question answer session. And like I said, if you still have any query, you can definitely write to us and we'll try our best to answer all those queries again. Also, you can, if you have missed part of the the presentation given by Dr. Singh, you can always go back to the Facebook page of National Water Mission, Water Digest, or any of the departments of Ministry of Jal Shakti, and you will be able to hear it again, see it again, and then you can of course write to us. Ma'am, before we conclude, would you like to say something so that we can conclude today's program?
Anupma, are we not on YouTube? Is Water Digest not on YouTube?
Ma'am, we are on YouTube. We are on YouTube, but we generally make it live through
Facebook.
the Facebook. Yes, ma'am.
Try YouTube also, that has a large following.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay, ma'am.
that's so. Thanks a ton, Maheshwar, for an excellent lecture and talk on water and sanitation as a matter of right. I mean, I guess there can be no one who is sane enough to say and argue that no, water and sanitation should not be a matter of right. But you see, I compliment you that the way, since I had warned you that don't be too critical of government, since this is a government talk, you were almost talking like my right hand and not being your fearless academic self. But to answer many questions which people have raised, which actually should have been addressed to me, but you did it quite well, is that you see, when there's a rights perspective, there's also the issue of justiciability of rights. I mean, we have so many rights. We all know that, you know, in the criminal jurisprudence, right to bail is almost, you know, it should be given unless some heinous crime has been committed. Then right to housing, right to water, as we were discussing. But when you look at things from a governance perspective, you know, it may be a right on paper, but then government has its limits of, as I have said earlier, and as Maheshwar has also said, that we have limits of, you know, finances, spaces, and there's a limit to which Delhi as a city can take the population, which is as bigger than Assam, which is a whole state. Delhi has a population which is more than Assam. So you see, and with water as a constraint, with total dependence on external sources being part of Yamuna River Basin, wherein, you know, there are problems. There's always conflict because it is my river, thy river, that all you know. So there's this issue of government limitation to enforcing rights. Like, you can, water is your right. Independently, if you go, High Court or Supreme Court will say that, okay, give them water. But then the issue of implementation comes. So what happens is, if you then have to go for a contempt process, then maybe, you know, in your colony, it will be done if there's a contempt. Because government beyond a point doesn't have that infrastructure. It cannot sustain more people than the city planners had initially visualized. And people are not also ready to move out to outer spaces, because you see buzzing economies in the middle of city. So we cannot just look at things as an, you know, before becoming a bureaucrat, I was also, you know, more thinker from the rights perspective. But after bureaucracy, I've realized that there are huge challenges in enforceability of right, and but there should not be an adversarial relation. You know, bureaucrats and agencies should always try to find a solution to the problem. One thing that we had proposed, we had this All India First State Water Ministers Conference, Water Resource Ministers Conference in Bhopal, which was addressed by the Honorable PM, who's a water champion, wherein we had suggested that why don't states go for a state water regulatory agency, wherein all the water related topics are, you know, like in Israel or in other countries, there are regulatory bodies wherein any policy on water has to go through that body. especially in areas where there's multiplicity of agencies. So that was a suggestion which we have made, and I think all the governments are working towards it. And but yes, another thing which you must know is water is a state subject. Water is not in the union list. Only inter basin or inter river issues are in the concurrent list. Otherwise, water is a state subject, and especially water supply comes in the domain of the state. So uh, from the center also, we cannot really, um, enforce anything except nudge the states through like the schemes we give, Swachh Bharat Mission Urban and the Amrut 2, and which I think has really, done a lot of good work. As Maheshwar is saying, that 1,500 crores has been sanctioned, and I think 600, 700 projects are being taken up in urban local bodies for rainwater harvesting under Amrit 2. So it's not that government of India is not investing, but yes, maybe we have to look for different technological solution. A piped water scheme in Delhi maybe would be costly. So we have to go for a low cost, basti wise rainwater harvesting system. Catch the rain. That's what Jal Shakti Abhiyan is about. Catch the rain when it falls, where it falls, harvest it. So, because Delhi also sees flooding and then sees drought. Roads are flooded, so where does the groundwater go? So we also, states have to start thinking about, that's why PM launched this Catch the Rain campaign, wherein he said that without community participation, nothing can happen. So just blame game and exercising rights will not go a long way because, exercising your rights also needs money. Rights cannot be enforced by the poor. They don't have a domestic help who goes to work in, apartments, will not have the time to go in for litigation. And so that's why most of our rights cannot be exercised, because poverty is the biggest inhibitor in exercising your rights. Only, well-off people can choose to exercise their rights. So I think instead of an adversarial relation, if we go for alternative technologies, and which are, Jal Shakti Abhiyan under the National Water Mission has created opportunities for international technologies like, rainwater harvesting structures. If you see urban municipal areas, especially in Bangalore, in Gujarat, they have done some fantastic work. I think Delhi should also clear up its, some spaces wherein rainwater harvesting structures can be made, so that our dependence on external water source can be solved. So I guess this is what I want to say, that there will always be challenges of a rights perspective and a governance perspective. But somewhere, if there is trust between community and citizen and the government, somewhere I think solutions can be found. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Dr. Singh, for being our
I'm
wonderful
not supposed to be adding my opinion on what
Please.
the
Yeah,
MD has
you
said.
can. This is free for all.
Okay, I think some of the issues that MD has touched upon are quite relevant, and the last part is most relevant. The trust, all right, which is the binding glue between the governor and the governed. And water is such an issue, or sanitation is such an issue, where adversarial relationship between governor and the governed will never give out a solution to the people who are not able to exercise the right. And to a large extent, you're also right to say that the poor people are, well, they exist only in papers, as someone has said that rights are like sleeping beauties. You have to wake them up. You have to make sense out of them. My work, I absolutely agree with you, and I have the freedom of an academic, but when I work from rights perspective, I also have a kind of rational choice approach or pragmatic approach to the issues as important as basic as water and sanitation. And I absolutely leave the space out for and willing to accommodate, and so should everyone, be alternative technological solution to to address the water and sanitation question. My only limited point, if I'm allowed to say, to emphasize on the right to water and sanitation, because large number of people who are migrating from rural and semi-rural areas to urban areas, are absolutely at a loss, and they feel disenfranchised, despite the fact many of the NGOs are working in these areas. All right, whether they are actually representing the actual will of people and actual grievances of people when they congregate for conferences, or I'm not very sure about it. So that was my only purpose to emphasize the rights-based approach to water and sanitation. That's about all. Thank you very much for your kind words, and of course I have to acknowledge my limitation that I'm not a practitioner.
And I'm not an academic. I have to acknowledge that. And there is this Mr. Singhal who is going on saying Abhiyan and budgets have not been able to provide any practical solution so far. I mean, if you could be more specific, Mr. Singhal, it would be good, because such generic comments lead us nowhere. I mean, I can say, it is bad to live in a country like India, but that doesn't tell. You have to be more specific about, have you gone in and seen what is the Delhi water budget? Have you seen the Jal Shakti Abhiyan campaigns in Delhi? I'm not saying that we may have or not have done good work, but thing is, before criticism, just generic, if you say, nobody is going to take you very seriously. But if you could say, okay, of these 7,000 crore budget provided, 5,000 crore has gone down the drain, then we will take you seriously in these areas. It has not been implemented. Otherwise, frankly, I don't care much for generic criticism unless it's specific. Thank you.
So once again, thank you, Dr. Singh, for your presentation. Thank you, Archana ma'am, for making us a part of this initiative. And thank you, our lovely participants, for making this session interactive by asking your questions. And I would also like to propose that if you want to hear something specific, you can always write to us. You can give us some suggestions. If you want to hear on certain topic, then maybe we'll try bringing the speaker who can speak about that particular topic. So please feel free to write to us, to write to Water Digest or National Water Mission, and we'll be happy bringing the right speakers and making these water talk interesting with every water talk. So thank you so much for all your support. We'll see you again on 19th of May. The topic will be disclosed shortly, and the speaker will also be disclosed shortly. Thank you so much for all your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Madhok and Archana and everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.